Yeah.
All right. Is it about time? Maybe we'll start. So, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Robert Buxton. It's great to be here. And since we met a month ago, I had an interesting month. We went to Mexico, which was fantastic. And I brought my portable keyboard, which I take everywhere, to practice, like a good citizen ought to do, who plays the piano. And you can imagine with 100% humidity and 2 toddlers, I did not use it very much. But at any rate, getting back into the swing of things. I want to improvise as always first, and what I'm doing now, I was asked somewhere to play the background music for a silent film. I've never done that before. And I thought, oh, how hard could it be? A 15-minute Charlie Chaplin something. Well, then they told me, after I had said yes, they said it's going to be Buster Keaton's The General, which is like an hour and 20 minutes. So what I'm preparing for this, and what I'm going to do now is just improvise on some of the things I've been, doing. Or around some of the musical ideas that have come to me when watching it. So it's a Civil War era movie. I mean, it was not made during the Civil War, obviously. It was made in 1926, but it should probably have like a little ragtime to it. And then there's some funny, like slapstick type things in there also. So you might hear some, I don't know. And then there's some train scenes where they're like chasing on a train. So let's see what happens. In other words, I'm just going to do a little improvisation on little ideas I've gotten from preparing for this crazy project. So, music for Buster Keaton's The General. So maybe I'll use some of that in the when I have to do that in a month. I still have a month, so I have more time. Let's see.
Why are you going to play for the Rebel?
For the Rebel? I don't know. What should I play?
So you're going to play this for a live showing?
Well, I'm not going to play that specifically because that was just, I made it up. But
Okay. You're going to be doing
something along those lines. As long as, if you think it sounds like it would work for a silent movie,
Oh, yes.
that's what I had the idea.
You'll be able to see the screen, I hope?
I hope I can. Yeah, that's a good point. Then what do you do? I guess you just hope for the best. So I'm going to start a mix of some old and new things today. Start with something that you've heard me play several times, many times before, the two Ave Marias. And I like to play them side by side because, you know, they're both Ave Marias. So first, Schubert's Ave Maria as arranged by Liszt. And this is something Schubert wrote about 3 years before he died in 1825. You know, he died at 31, which is just mind-boggling. Even Mozart lived longer. Mozart lived to be 35. And I think that obviously had an effect on Schubert's music. He knew his time was limited, and he would write incessantly in those last years. And there's a feeling in his music, almost like a desperate feeling to put out all the feelings that he had. At the same time, Schubert didn't, I was thinking about this recently, he wouldn't beat you over the head with a tragic feeling in his music. Maybe Beethoven could do that. It's not a criticism of Beethoven at all, who I love so much too. But Beethoven will give you something like that maybe, right? But Schubert is more... Schubert's music, like that piece too, I imagine it's like as if he's sitting in the coffee shops in Vienna watching people go by. He doesn't have this, what's the word, anger or something. It is a bittersweet, melancholy feeling to it. And this, I think, is very Viennese, because there's an old joke about in the 19th century they would say, what's the difference between the Germans and Austrians? And the difference is that in Germany, that's where Beethoven was from, you know, things are very, very serious, but there's always hope. In Vienna and Austria, it's the other way around. Things are very serious, things are not serious at all, but there's no hope. And that's the feeling, really, in Schubert's. I know it's a joke, but that is seriously the feeling in a lot of Schubert's music, even this. So I think, as I mentioned when I played it before, the text for this, I'm not singing any text because I don't sing, but Schubert he did not use the Latin Ave Maria for this. He used an excerpt of Sir Walter Scott's poem, The Lady of the Lake. It's a different text. Also, the subject is Ave Maria. It's about Virgin Mary, but different text. But it works beautifully with the Latin. So here is Liszt's arrangement, and from the middle until the end, you're going to hear more Liszt, perhaps, than Schubert, because Liszt adds all his curls and twirls. Like all those extra notes, that's Liszt's additions. Some say, oh, he's just showing off there, as Liszt does. But I don't think so. I think he's doing that because he knows without a singer, it could get a little repetitive. So this is how he transforms it into a piano piece. Here it is. Thanks. So there's more than one Ave Maria. Forgive me if you've heard this story, but my wife recently, now it's not that recent, a few months ago, she was asked to play for a wedding. And they said, please play Ave Maria for some part of the service. I don't know. And my wife said, which one? And they said, look, don't get smart with us. There's only one Ave Maria, but there's not. So this is the Bach-Gounod Ave Maria. And the way this was written, I love it, is in the 1850s, Gounod was hanging out with his father-in-law, and they were playing Bach together. And just think about that for a second. Wouldn't the world be a better place if everyone played Bach with their in-laws? Really? So, but I also thought, who does that, really? And so they were playing this. Well, I mean, the father-in-law, I guess, was playing that. And spontaneously, Gounod improvised this melody on top of it. And then the father-in-law said, wow, that's amazing. What a good father-in-law. I actually don't know his name. I should probably learn. And the father-in-law wrote it down. He jotted it down. And so Gounod took that and he touched it up a bit, published it as a violin piece. And then later, that was very popular, and then he added words to it. And in his case, he added the Latin Ave Maria text, which Schubert did not use. So this is the Bach-Gounod Ave Maria. I don't play violin or sing, so this is Georges Bizet's version for solo piano, the guy who wrote Carmen, the opera. So that's confusing. It's a lot of people involved in this, making this piece. So it's in order. It's Bach, it's Gounod, it's the father-in-law, and Bizet, Ave Maria. Another Ave Maria by all of them. Now I'm going to play back to Schubert, arranged by Liszt. This is the Erlkönig, which is something Schubert wrote as a young man. He was only like 17 years old when he wrote it. And it's one of the most terrifying pieces I know of, for a few reasons. One is just to play it is terrifying. I saw there was no coffee when I came in, because coffee really helps to play, because we have to do this repeated motion the entire time. Caffeine does wonders for it. But in all seriousness, it's a very, very dark piece. The text, it's a vocal piece again. The text is by Goethe, and there are 4 characters. A good singer like Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, one of the greatest Schubert interpreters, he would even change his voice to convey the character of each of these people. But there's a narrator who tells us what's going on. There's a father, there's a young boy, son, and then there's this very weird supernatural, maybe a ghost, called the Erlkönig. And Erlkönig, König in German is king. So I was reading about what does it mean. In Old Danish, it might mean elf king, but it's not even clear if that's what it is. So it's an enigmatic character, this guy. So the piece, it takes place during a thunderstorm, and the father and the son are on a horse carriage, and they're racing through the forest, and the trees are just going crazy in the rain and the thunder, trying to get to a doctor because the young boy is very sick. And you can hear all of that from the first notes. You can hear the horse hooves, the storm, the rain, everything. And that goes on for the whole piece pretty much. Now, it's a dialogue. The son keeps telling the dad, he says, mein Vater in German. He says, I hear this ghost talking to me, and he's telling me to come to him. And of course, the Erlkönig represents death. So this is the boy's part. There's a terror in it. And the words there are actually, mein Vater, you know. And the father keeps reassuring his son, saying, you're just imagining it, it's an illusion, it's not real. Mind's on. And so this is mainly what's going on, this dialogue. Now the strangest part of this is when the Erlkönig speaks, the music changes. It becomes almost, I don't want to say cheerful, but it's almost like the sun comes out, because and you still hear the horse hooves in the background, very quiet, but or this part. It's almost a little cheerful even. And the great pianist Alfred Brendel said with Schubert, music in the minor key, which is, that represents for Schubert reality. Because reality for Schubert was cold and harsh. He was very sick his whole life, most of his life. And also in Schubert, when you have music in the major key, like, that represents dreams and illusions. And I think that works perfectly to explain the Erlkönig. So Schubert also, I told you he died at 31, and he lived this piece literally. He probably felt that death was always, trying to pull him. So, terrifying piece. This is sort of in the genre of horror, like horror movies, or Gothic. This was very popular in the early 19th century. I mean, they didn't have movies, but when was Frankenstein written? Around this time. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. All from this time, early 19th century, and same with this piece. So if you're used to Mozart, and you're an early 19th century person, and then you hear, it's quite a contrast. The people who say classical music is calm, no, not really. So good luck to you and good luck to me. This is a very, and I'm just warning you, it gets very loud and intense. So. I mean, no. There's a way to, the memorization is in here first, and then it goes here, ideally. Not that I always follow that, but you take the music and you try to study it and try to remember it and internalize it. And then you start playing it, and it takes some time. And it's kind of torture to memorize. That's how I describe it. But it's worth it, you know. It's a kind of a masochism, you know. So, and playing that piece is also, but I had two experiences when I was in Mexico on this trip. By the way, we flew to Cancun, and we really did not like it that much. And we got a rental car and drove to Mérida, which is in the center of the Yucatan, and it's a real, you know, city. It's not very touristy, and it was incredible. But I had this experience, two experiences that reminded me of the piece. And the first was really the most terrifying, which is I have two young kids, 4 and 6 years old, 2 boys, and we went to the pool, just me and the 2 of them, and it really needs to be, now I know, it needs to be 2 adults with 2 kids at all times. And really, because they're just like all over the place, and I'm here with my 4-year-old, I'm watching my 6-year-old, and in 1 second, boom, he was underwater. There was a guy in the pool that he was trying to talk to, and I was too far. And I just tried, you know, to go get him. It was the most terrifying thing. And luckily the gentleman in the pool was right there. He just picked him up.
Yeah.
But that moment of terror, you know, I thought about this piece. It's a father and a young son. I thought about it after, of course. It dawned on me. The other thing was we were driving on the highway through the rainforest, and there was a huge thunderstorm. It was just, I thought about this because that's what this piece is, you know. So now I'm going to play several short pieces from a separate program I've been doing. So I'm going to be playing a program at a synagogue in Raleigh and focusing, not 100%, but majority of the composers of a Jewish background and explaining the history behind their music and their lives. So I'm going to start, some of these are violin pieces that I've kind of doctored for the piano because I can't play the violin as much as I'd like to. This is the Sicilienne by Maria von Paradis. She was a great composer from Vienna in the late 18th century. Now, there's one problem with this piece, that she actually didn't write it. It's a musical forgery. Yeah, that exists. Just like in painting, they'll say, oh, this Rembrandt is not really a Rembrandt. This is actually by the Polish-Jewish violinist Samuel Dushkin, who ended up living in the US. And it doesn't matter who wrote it. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece. And this was a common thing for people to do in the early 20th century. Fritz Kreisler, who I'm going to play next, would do the same thing, to say, look, think of it this way. If I told you, I'm going to play you some piece I wrote, come on, you might say, oh, you know. But if I told you, here's a piece that I found by Vivaldi in a library somewhere, you might say, wow, I think that's the psychology behind saying that a piece you wrote is by somebody else. You know, it takes some of the burden of judgment off of it. So this piece it's called Sicilienne, and a Sicilienne has a specific rhythm. Bum, ba, bum, bum. I was talking to someone recently, they said that's the, what is it, hexamic pentameter or something in ancient Greek. I probably said that wrong, but you know, it would make sense because Sicily was ancient Greece. But anyway, the rhythm of the Sicilian, bum, 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 bum. There's so much music that has that exact rhythm, like Mozart here. You hear that long, short, long, long, short, long. There's Schubert has some that have that rhythm. Rachmaninoff has it too. There's it, and by the way, even that's a Sicilian as well. Well, I played this piece, the Sicilian, somewhere, and a lady came to me. She said, "Look, I have Sicilian background. It didn't sound Sicilian at all." I said, "Yeah, it doesn't necessarily evoke Sicily, but the rhythm and the dance form comes from Sicily originally." Jean-Jacques Rousseau said that the Sicilian evokes nostalgia, homesickness. And that's what this piece definitely has. I came to play it because one of my musical heroes, Ivry Gitlis, the violinist, he played this in his later years. And he played it so beautifully. I said to myself, well, first I said, I have to switch instruments. And then when my wife talked me out of that, okay, I have to play it on the piano then. So here is the Sicilian by Maria von Paradis, except not. It's by Samuel Dushkin. Here's another violin piece that I've doctored and made a piano piece, the Schon Rosmarin by Fritz Kreisler. And Fritz Kreisler was from Vienna, just like Schubert, but he was later than Schubert. He was in the early 20th century. And Fritz Kreisler, unlike pretty much every classical composer, was not a heavy, dark, brooding kind of person. He was just cheerful, happy-go-lucky, easygoing, friends with everybody. Not many classical musicians like that in the past, or even the present, I don't know, really. So he was unique, and his music has that feeling. I think it was Itzhak Perlman said that Kreisler, in his music and his recordings, there's almost no like pathos or what's the word he used, like Mephistopheles, like devilish. He's just pure and happy and easygoing, and his music has that. So this is a waltz. It's a Viennese waltz, which is different from a regular waltz. A regular waltz, but a Viennese waltz has a bit of a hiccup to it, jolt to it. That's just part of the style. And Fritz Kreisler, even the way he looked, he had this mustache and everything. He even looked so Viennese of that time, the La Belle Époque, the early 20th century. But he was Jewish, and Vienna descended into this horrible anti-Semitism, fascism, and they just rejected him in a very ugly way. But fortunately, he left with his family. He came to the U.S. and had a great time here performing with Rachmaninoff, among others. Maybe you've heard the story that he didn't like to practice, and so he was in Carnegie Hall performing with Rachmaninoff on the piano. And Rachmaninoff, was a very stern kind of person. And Kreisler messed up because he didn't practice. So he walked over to Rachmaninoff in the concert. He says, "Hey, where are we?" And Rachmaninoff growled at him, "Carnegie Hall." He meant where in the music hall. So, yeah. So here's the Schon Rosmarin by Kreisler. I think you will, I can describe his character, but you'll get to know him almost as if you're meeting him from this piece, I think. So you'll see what I mean. So I want to play George Gershwin now, the third of his preludes. He wrote a set of 3 preludes. This is number 3. It's very short, and it has so much in it. Gershwin, he changed his name. Again, this is the theme, just like Kreisler was, anti-Semitism over there. In this country, Gershwin's parents were Russian Jewish immigrants, and his last name was Gershowitz. He changed his name to Gershwin, and he wrote all this music that we associate with. It's the most Americana thing you could do. He incorporated the blues and jazz and other popular idioms, classical, popular and classical sort of mixed together. But there's something that's I don't hear too much talk about, which is I think there's a lot of klezmer influence in Gershwin as well. Look at the beginning of Rhapsody in Blue. Who plays that opening scale? It's a clarinet. That's the most klezmer instrument. And look at this piece. I mean, this piece that I'm going to play now, it's a little jazzy, but I think it has a lot of klezmer in it. It has a Tin Pan Alley feel. By the way, a lot of the Tin Pan Alley composers were, either born in Russia or Ukraine with Jewish background, or their parents were. But what is sounds to me like some moments of klezmer. So Gershwin, to me, like this piece especially, it reminds me of like a newsreel or something. This is 1926 when he wrote it. Or some of those old cartoons that they used to show in movie theaters. I mean, this is like before I was born, in the 1920s, 100 years ago. That's what this reminds me of. That I mean, I've seen it like on YouTube, not. So here is the third prelude, George Gershwin. Gonna jump around. I might come back to a couple more composers that are gonna be on this program, but I want to play you another American composer from the same time period, the 1920s and 30s, who's not played as much, and he should be, because he did a very similar thing. This is William Grant Still. Like Gershwin, he incorporated popular idioms into his classical writing. And you can't say that it's jazz or it's classical, it's just sort of its own thing. And so, but William Grant Still's music, it sounds fundamentally different from Gershwin because he was born in Mississippi. And that's a very different place than, I think Gershwin was born in Queens. Very different. So if music could have a humidity level, this piece would be very humid. It reminds me of the Spanish moss that hangs off of trees in the deep south. I was in Jacksonville, Florida playing, and I saw that. I was in the car with the concert organizer, and I said, wow, that's so beautiful. You look, he said, do you like it? You want to take some home with you? Put it in your suitcase? And I'm glad I didn't, because I later read that there's all kinds of bugs in there. So, but this piece, it just has that feeling of the Deep South, I think. And William Grant Still was especially, I think, devoted himself especially to writing opera. And The Troubled Island he wrote in the late 40s. Langston Hughes was the librettist. It was done at the New York City Opera and had an amazing reaction from the audience. But future performances of that opera were mysteriously canceled. And things like that happened all the time, most probably because he was African American and suffered from discrimination. So now is the best time to start hearing his music more, I think. So this is Summerland by William Grant Still. The name, Mississippi summer, all that humidity I was talking about, it just makes sense to call it that. So here is Summerland by William Grant Still. It's a very peaceful, not melancholy, it's kind of very reflective and calm. And I'm not very calm, but it's a calm piece. And yeah, people make these parallels with Gershwin, but I think they're doing similar things, but they sound so different, is what I want to say. next I'm going to try, this is going to be a little experimental. I'm going to try an arrangement that I've done, and even though I wrote it, I have trouble playing it because it's, I don't know, it shouldn't be that way, you'd think, but yeah. So I hope I can do it. And this piece, the story behind it's the most American thing you could imagine because it's such a mix of so many things. This is called The Green Leaves of Summer. You ever heard of that? Yes, it's from a movie, 1960, The Alamo, with John Wayne. And so that's, Western, John Wayne. Okay, who wrote it? You know the composer's name? Dmitri Tiomkin. He was a Russian Jewish immigrant. He also wrote all the music for High Noon and many of the Westerns. And they asked him how he wrote his music. He said he had ways of conjuring up the Old West, but he said ultimately his models were Bach, Beethoven, Debussy, and especially Russian and Jewish folk music. How do you like that? The recording I've based my arrangement on is Mahalia Jackson. She sang it. She did not sing much music that was not gospel, very rarely. But if she did, it was something that she felt worked as gospel. And this is such a serious and deep piece of music, and the words too, that she viewed it, I think, as, equal to gospel that she was singing. So, and of course, Mahalia Jackson was one of the greatest gospel singers ever. So I just love that it's so many different influences. It's music from a John Wayne movie, written by a Russian Jewish immigrant, sung by Mahalia Jackson. And I try to arrange it for piano solo, but I don't know, it's hard, but here it is. See what I can do with first time I've ever played that for anyone. So I wrote it in a crazy way. So, but it's such a beautiful piece, and the way Mahalia Jackson sings it, she changes it. In the movie, it's more like. Mahalia draws it out a lot, and she makes it, So, here's a piece by Jan Frankel, who was a Russian Jewish songwriter, and he did not come to the U.S. He stayed, and he's one of my mother's favorites. My mother's from the Soviet Union. And this, I may have played this here before a while back. This is Zhuravli. It's a folk song. It means cranes, like not cranes like what they use for building, but the birds. And it's a very, very tragic, it's a Second World War memorial song. And the text of the poem, I think it was Jan Frankel wrote the music, but the poet, I forget his name, he was from Dagestan. And I think he was very ill from the effects of the Second World War, and he went to Japan and saw one of the memorials for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And there was a story that there was a little girl who made white cranes, origami cranes, and that there was an old Japanese tradition that if you made a certain number of cranes, you would live. And in the middle of making it, she died of leukemia. And he was so inspired. He wrote this poem about that. And the text says, in Russian, it says, I look up at the sky and I see the cranes flying, and I think of the dead soldiers from World War II. And he said, there's a space in there, a gap, and I imagine that that gap is one day reserved for me. My uncle Boris, who's no longer with us, would quote this song in the last weeks of his life. And he quoted that line often. So, beautiful, very sad piece, obviously. Here's Jan Frankel, Zhuravli Cranes. you know, that's a personal thing for me because my mother loves it, my uncle loved it, and to add more context, my uncle was born in 1940 in Russia, in the Soviet Union. And from I don't know how old, he was just days old, they went to Siberia. And from age 0 to 5, they were in Siberia with hardly any food. I mean, they survived, it was, you know, but yeah, so that's probably why we always joke, that's why my uncle likes to eat a lot. So probably making up for that time. The story was he was coming back to Moscow on a train from Siberia. He was by that time 5 years old. And he walked up to every single person. Everyone was celebrating the end of the war. They were giving him food, and he ate so much that he vomited. Yeah, poor 5-year-old was. Okay, I want to close with a couple things, a little maybe more upbeat things. Those are depressing, the music I played just now. So I don't know if this is upbeat, but I want to play "Flight of the Bumblebee" as arranged by Georgi Chifra. I've played it for you before. You know, still summer, so you might experience it in real life if you go outside. Chifra's version is the one that sounds like the swarms of hornets, you know. So this is a really crazy arrangement of "Flight of the Bumblebee" by Rimsky-Korsakov. Maybe, yeah. Actually, you're right. And I'll play that there's some of the chase scenes, and there's another part, there's a thunderstorm scene where I'm going to use the Schubert. So you can throw in, and then some of the romantic scenes, I could use the Schumann. So I want to play now some gospel. This is a very new gospel arrangement I'm doing of Go Down Moses, loosely based on the way Louis Armstrong does it. So let's see what happens. So. To close, a little short version of Peace in the Valley by Thomas Dorsey. Thank you all again for having me. So, here it is. One more time. Appreciate it, and I'll see you later. It's always a pleasure to be here. So.
Thank you.